All right. Well, I'm River Kenna, and this is my friend Rosa Lewis. And yeah, we've talked a couple times about our retreats that we've been on over the past couple months. And yeah, one of the things that really touched me in those retreats was you gave a Donna talk at the end of each one, a talk about money and generosity and kind of the way that our entire existing paradigm just doesn't work with a lot of it when it comes to mysticism, to spirituality, to living in particular ways that a lot of us want to be living. And yeah, I was really touched by a lot of this and wanted to get some of it on the record with you. I've got a starting point that I could start with, but I'm curious if there's somewhere you would prefer that comes up immediately.
Yeah, I think I'm curious to start with your starting point. Maybe just to add to that as well. I think there's something about that. I guess we recorded a couple of conversations about the retreats, and I think there's something about really the thing that we're doing, the practice and approach that we're um yeah, doing and practicing and teaching and exploring. I think there's a way of doing practices where you go on retreat, you do the practice, you come back, you sort of uh yeah, integrate it into life. And uh I feel like in the current world there's a really strong push around like that's the right way to do it. This is better. As you talk about this as well, the kind of like, oh, you have to come back and be able to integrate it and just be
Mm.
a better person within this paradigm that's clearly the right paradigm and is and I think on the retreats, what we're actually doing is dismantling the paradigm a bit and coming into something that's a different mode of being. And but there is an integrated part of it where it's like bringing, it's not about just like leaving behind a bunch of life and going and just living in a monastery or something. It's kind of like taking everything with and looking at it and looking at how does it create a whole way of being that is in this like different paradigm. Um, and money is one of those things, right? It's like how does money flow when you're in a more mystical way of being? And so yeah, it was really rich to like bring that in and talk about it, and especially because um, maybe another one more thing is that the yeah, there's a really strong focus on like realness and wholeness in the way of being. And I think one of the places where people have a lot of like shadow and contraction and it's difficult to be real and whole is around money. It's just it's like, money, sex, power, like the things that are kind of that hold a lot of sort of like there's not a lot of openness around them. So it was actually really rich to yeah, talk about these things and share more and bring that in as something that we look at and say, like, yeah, how does this work in this paradigm? What are the impacts? What are the flows? Um, yeah, so it's very, very rich.
Yeah, there's so many threads I want to pick up in what you just said, but that would be its own whole conversation. So we'll leave a bunch of those for now. But yeah, there is something at the core of that that connects with where I wanted to start anyway. That's very, yeah, the way that you live is a whole way of living, whether it's in society or as a mystic on the edges of society. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. And that kind of just permeates. And one of the things that, yeah, where I kind of wanted to start this is there's a way that the whole like the way you do something emanates off of you. This is obvious to a lot of people in like certain fields and then becomes very non-obvious, or we just don't think about it, or we try to wall it off from others. I think it's kind of most obvious in things like writing and art, where, if the artist is really just bummed and heartbroken, you hear it in the song. Like when they're singing, you can hear that heartbreak and it just comes through. If they're actually like, if they're singing a happy song, but they're actually like, pretty depressed, pretty sad, if you're attentive, you're gonna notice that. There's a bunch of these people on like YouTube and stuff where people will notice months before they have a nervous breakdown. It's like, oh, look at their eyes. They're not okay. Look at the way that they're like talking and these things. They're not doing great. But yeah, that whatever your kind of energy field is, you're always putting it off and it affects the whole way everything you do, everything how it all lands. And that money is not exempt from that, that the way we treat money is tied into the way that our heart and mind and gut and soul and desires and all of it, the whole way the energy field is organized, also affects money. And money is an effect and a cause and kind of a really interesting nexus point for a lot of that. And yeah, curious if you want to, anything you can say more about the ways that money is a nexus point for all of this.
Yeah, I think there's also something about it's like from the mystical view as well. It's like these things have deeper, they're sort of like deeper, I want to say metaphorical, but that's not quite right. It's like uh they sort of point to deeper essences that are kind of like some of the core, yeah, like the core essence of how experience comes into life. It's like a lot of societal stuff focuses around like sex and attracting mates and this and that, but there's like a deeper layer of that, which is just your eros and your life force and your life flow. That's like a broader topic. I feel like m money is a bit like that, where it's kind of like money is like a thing that holds. It's a very sort of compact symbol for like status, power, resource, like empowerment, how you give and receive from people, how you relate to, yeah, like whether resources are something that are there to be taken or something to be cared for. I really love the thing you wrote about like some different modes of ways of relating to money, where it's like, is it dana and generosity and kind of this free flow? Is it this like stewardship thing where you're sort of yeah, it's something that you care for and use wisely. Is it like this kind of and then that's yeah, it's sort of like a little, it's like a very sort of compact thing, money, like the amount of money, whatever, and then it spreads across this whole deeper sort of gestalt of yeah, how you relate to yourself, others, giving, receiving, how much fear you have around kind of like, I need to hoard these resources to take care of myself versus trusting the world and like what's important, what's worth investing in versus what's like just throw some money at that. Do you want to be a person who yeah, is careful and takes care, or do you want to be a person who just has abundance and kind of throws money around? Like, there's just sort of like all of these kind of personality traits. Thing, so much is contained in such a small thing.
Yeah, there's a few things I want to chase there. I don't want to spend too much time here. But one thing that yeah, as you're talking about this, the way that money is connected with everything, I said it's like a nexus connected to a lot of this stuff. And I'm hearing some conversation around like near enemies of right relationship to money, where I do think, yeah, there's ways of going like, money is connected with everything and it's super important. And then we get like gospel of wealth, gospel of prosperity stuff, where it's like the more money you have, the more God loves you. Or it can go off in this other direction of like, oh, I get to still continue to be obsessed with money and like how much I have and how much I give and how good of a person I am. And nothing actually changes. Like before, you were obsessed with money and now you're obsessed with money, but you get to feel better about it. And yeah, that there's all these kind of near enemies there. And I'm curious, A, if near enemy stuff comes to mind, and B, if there's, I don't know, something about right relationship to money. Does that ping anything?
Hmm. Yeah, I think I think the thing that comes up is that being in the context of the retreats, it's not so much giving someone this is the correct relationship to have to money. It's more like bringing it in as a part of experience to be conscious of with the sort of like, yeah, with the like tenderness and care around that this is like a difficult topic and it's hard for people to be present with it. And it's sort of like using it as a way to using it as part of the exploration rather
Mm,
than landing on a place where it's like, this is the way to relate to money. Um, Something in the like flexibility of it. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not answering the question, but that's what is coming up.
yeah, no, that goes a direction. The Yeah, when I say like right relationship to something, I don't necessarily mean like right or wrong. I am pointing more at, yeah, some navigational thing. And what I just heard you say is some parts of that navigation are things like, I think you use terms like openness and tenderness and like just, yeah, more open inquiry, having, I'm hearing something around curiosity, maybe, of like inquiring into your own relationship to money and keeping that an open question. So, yeah, I guess if there's anything else that comes up around, yeah, key parts of that navigation and what is it like to step into this type of open navigational relationship with money, generosity, etc.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if there's something about maybe talking a bit about how we talked about it on retreat, where um I think there's a way of um and maybe it's worth bringing in a bit around the altitudes development stuff as well,
Mm.
which is a frame that sort of helps orient some of this, I think, in terms of paradigms.
Yeah. Very similar to spiral dynamics. If anyone is more familiar with that, you can almost swap them out.
Yeah, just some
Almost.
slightly different colors, just to confuse people. Um, but there's a very dominant paradigm around orange, which is kind of rational, capitalist, scientific materialist mode, which most of the world lives in. Or let's say a large proportion of the Western world lives in orange. Um, and there's a way in which it's a paradigm which affects your way of looking. Like a lot of the stuff focuses on like, oh, people see these things and value these things, but it like gets in people. It's like a whole metaphysics that someone exists in. I think one of the things that I see that it's not often talked about is that each of these paradigms is like a working metaphysics. It's like the way that energy flows, the way that what is seen, the way that of what is considered real, and and then you get these sort of like implicit assumptions about ways of being, and money is obviously one of those. And I think in Orange, it's very much if you spend X, you get Y. It's like I can order this thing on Amazon, I pay this much, it arrives tomorrow, I get it. That is very clear, but then that also can be there on a really subtle implicit level of if I do this practice for 2 years, then I'll get this result. It's like this kind of like ability to be rational and control outcomes and see things and invest and get return, and it's sort of like that can be in the practice mode. If I go on this retreat, this will happen. If I yeah, this thing is worth this amount of money and I'm gonna like pay that, or maybe I'll like because I'm in an orange mode and trying to get the best value possible, I'll try and find a cheaper thing that does the same thing. It's like this sort of yeah, it's a whole way of being. And it's very good for like optimizing things and making things kind of like affordable and more and able to reach more people, and it has lots of good traits. But the downside is you get this sort of like transactional exchange optimization mode, which limits like it limits the kind of like depth and all of the information that doesn't fit into that transactional mode just gets lost. And yeah, it's like yeah, it just becomes a kind of everything becomes a transaction. And I think that a mystical mode is much more, you're much more like in where yeah, this is kind of like altitudes of development where it's kind of higher if you're looking at like teal, turquoise, and above. It's really a lot more about like orienting around values, around like essence, around what is the thing that is, yeah, like deeply wanting to come through that you want to honor. How is that, does that intersect with the community, the earth? Like how is, yeah, how is that coming through as an expression of like a deeper mode? And I think when you relate to money like that, the thing we were talking about with Dana is that, yeah, it's a really beautiful like tradition or mode that has been upheld, I guess, through many traditions, but I know it best through kind of Buddhism in terms of like the generosity to give towards something that is that holds like enormous amounts of value for everyone in a way that is outside of that transactional mode. It's not about yeah, and also I think as a teacher, there's something really, really deeply important and profound about I'm not doing this for the money. And if it's put in an orange mode where it's like, oh, I give this and I get this back, that's actually like an incorrect way of holding the thing that I'm doing. Where the thing that I'm doing is like, yeah, and this is the bit where I always cry when we talk about this on retreats.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, it's like the thing that I'm doing is comes from a place of just like deep, deep love and care and integrity and desire to desire for benefit in a way that is also super mysterious and has its own kind of like yeah, sort of deep mystical flows around it that I need to be able to like listen to and honor and stay in integrity with. And of course, a part of that is like, oh, is this actually impacting people and can people see that and do people value it? It's not like a free ticket where it's like, well, I'm listening to that. There's a shadow there, right? Where it's like, I'm listening to the mystical flows and so I can do whatever the fuck I want. We've seen like gurus go down that sort of
Hmm.
like shadow path, but there's something about including and honoring the fact that it can't be contained within that like sort of transactional way of being. There's something much deeper that's happening. That's an important part of what's present, and I think that Dana, yeah, Dana is a way of honoring that because it's it's relating to the teaching and the practice and the whole sort of like commitment to this part of life as a thing that flows from generosity and through generosity and is yeah, it's like given from a place of generosity and receiving back other people's generosity is like beautiful and yeah, I think there's like a whole system that gets kind of where a piece of experience is included that's vital to the mood.
Yeah. For whatever reason, for me, and this might come back to the thing where I just don't seem to have a Buddhist bone in me. But yeah, the term dana, something hits for me when we start using the translation, the word generosity, and it
Mhm.
starts sinking into me much more clearly in a way that when we talk about dana, I kind of have to internally translate so that it will hit for me. And I know it's different for other people, but yeah, when we get back to the meaning of the word, to generosity, and when you talk about generosity, it opens up into something that I recognize much more as, I don't know, like I've made a lot of effort the past year or two to be really generous with like my time and my effort with my friends and really just like give what I can there. And certain things around generosity with resources, being able to like, okay, I'm talking to someone and there's like a really strong feeling that like I can help here in some way, that I have a resource that would be helpful to them and I can do it. And that makes something much clearer to me about what you're saying, that like each of these is kind of a whole metaphysics. It's not, money is kind of the easiest way to talk about it because it does collapse everything down to one number. So it's all right there and we can just talk about the number. It's nice. And that, yeah, for me, something about calling it generosity does open up more of the recognition of, right, this is a whole landscape of the way you can be generous with yourself and with others and be generous with your money, but you can be generous with time, resources, anything that is of value to you or others, essentially. And yeah, on the retreats, watching you be incredibly generous with your time and your energy and your teaching. And yeah, while you were talking, there was some note of the like, yeah, Rosa's not doing this for the money. If she is, she's really, really bad at it. If anyone has doubts that she's not doing this for the money, we will show you the accounting receipts of these retreats. Um, yeah, just remembering on the retreats, one of the things that you said that helped lock this in for me was just noting this way that yeah, that transactionality creeps into practice. And the example you gave of like, I do my jhana practice, I get my bliss states. I do my breathing meditation, I get my mindfulness. I do this, I get this, and how much that creeps into practice. And then seeing increasingly with me that that's at the core of some knot I have around like, things have often not gone well for me the past year or so. I've got a chronic disease, mold stuff, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the time when these things go wrong, there is this background sense of like, I'm being good. I'm like dedicating myself to practice and care and trying to be like good and nice. And why is this shit happening to me? And that's in there as well as like that there's a missed transaction that I'm getting of like, I'm doing my part and paying in. Why am I not getting what I should out of this? And just noticing that increasingly. That's just one example. But yeah, the way that this is in a lot of layers, whatever metaphysics we're at with the value and the money and whatever else. It's just there, background.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. And actually the sort of mode that really is the kind of different mode is this sort of wholehearted presence and just showing up with whatever's present as the right thing, which I know you've been, I feel like you're getting that on extra hard mode where all the
A little bit, but
like practicing doing that while all of the basic things fall away. Um, yeah.
In, sorry.
And I guess there is this a sort of subtlety which then also relates to money around that, which is um that really starts to kick in when you can trust um like in altitudes of development speak, they describe it as the sort of shift from green up to teal is a really big shift and a big death. And the thing that allows it to happen is abundance. And again, the word abundance is a bit maybe, I feel like you could use the word trust over abundance. Um, it's like there's enough, there's a way that you can come out of this sort of, yeah, self-protective transactional mode, more sort of narcissistic kind of self-interested mode that kicks in when you can't trust life, basically. And yeah, there's something about abundance or trust where it's not about, oh, we now have so much money, we can do whatever we want and have, like all of this
Mm.
stuff, and I never have to worry about money again. But it's more like, yeah, can I orient towards trusting that um, if I give generously, I'm not going to be like out on the streets in a month's time or something. There's like and some of that work is internal. It's like because I think you see it in the world a lot. It's like people the lack of trust comes from like an inner, yeah, narcissistic drive to just continually like accumulate more and more and more and be greedy. And it's like it's not reflective of the external world at all. That person's just completely lost touch with reality, and it's just that sort of like self-protective drive is just carried on going. Or it can also be that the person is incredibly generous and that external world that there isn't enough resource there. And so you're kind of like constantly fighting this sense of trust of like, oh, is it actually enough? Or am I like on the edge of something where I just really don't have the resources to like survive and function and have the basic needs, human needs met. And I think there's something in that yeah, I don't know. There's just something important in that around like trust, abundance, enough. And it relates a bit. We were just talking before about aesthetic and kind of like there's a way that a lot of spiritual practice can be very austere and kind of like, oh, I'd have as little as possible. And then you've obviously also got this sort of like very luxury, kind of like luxury yoga retreats and this and that. And we're just gonna like hang out and be in total luxury. And I think that there's like I mean, I'm just describing the middle way now, but where I'm coming from, just like call myself doing the thing. But there is something about yeah, it's like having enough and to really support the practice and well-being and flourishing of people having what they need to do what they need to do.
Yeah. I like the phrase you took from a surf school in our conversation before this. What was it? Everything you need and nothing more.
Yeah, yeah. So this was I was saying before there's a surf school in Morocco that has this really lovely aesthetic. I think we were kind of talking before about how aesthetic is like another one of these things that like contains so much, a bit like money and sex and power. It's like you can contain so much in a small amount of space. And this place really like captured me. I haven't been, I've just seen a lot of photos, but it's like yeah, just they converted an old school and it's like beautiful, just like white rooms, kind of quite like basic, but just like nice light, comfy beds, like a simple rail that's like well built to hang your clothes on, like a nice place to put your things, like a nice sink or whatever. It's just sort of like the things are nice, but it's not yeah, and when you're there, I get the sense it's like I guess I go for this aesthetic in my life very strongly. It's like it's comfy, it's yeah, nice light. It's like you can rest, you can feel supported by nature. You're like, you have all the things around you that you need. But yeah, you're not, nothing more than that kind of like just simple beauty, presence, supported by life feeling.
Yeah, I feel like this connects with aesthetic too. I want to go back to it seems like both of us identified in some way. this idea of like wholeheartedness as being at the center of a lot of the stuff around money, and B, around like aesthetic as well. And I kind of want to dig into what each of us means by that. For me, it connects very strongly to basically where I started and what I would say aesthetic is a great example of, where the signature of your being shows up in everything that you do, basically. So if your aesthetic, you can't hide in your aesthetic particularly well. Even if you try to polish your aesthetic to hit one very specific direction, what then is clear in the aesthetic is like, oh, you really tried to polish something out of there. What are you hiding? And if you do just like very naturally and skillfully put out the like, here's the aesthetic, here's what I'm creating, here's what's around. Yeah, kind of everything that you are, everything that you brought to that process is present there. And even like the thing you listed earlier, just sex, money, power, each of those, like your wholeheartedness is already present. Like, yeah, sex is one that I use as an example a lot because people kind of can't help but notice once they pay attention of like, hey, try having sex in kind of like a bored and disinterested way, and then a way where you're like mad but not telling them. And now from the heart and like just there and with like for the other person. And you can't help but notice like, oh, this is a completely different experience for everyone involved. And money and power, actually, power might be a good one for certain people to. I hear this all the time about people who like own companies, founded companies, or are just like talking about other companies where it's like, yeah, the founder's shadow just ended up everywhere in all of the processes, or the way that like their genuine love for whatever it is they're doing just diffuses the whole way that they are as a leader. And yeah, so for me, wholeheartedness points towards a lot of this aspect of just everything that you're doing bears the signature of your being. So maybe, you know, bring a very deep and powerful essence of yourself to everything that you're doing. Yeah, I'm curious for you.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, I really feel that. Just saying it, and I think there's something about the when there isn't abundance, people have to contract into smaller ways and like squeeze into different modes and kind of uh yeah, do things to get certain things. But from a wholehearted view, you can still see from within those things they're operating in smaller ways and seeing and that works. But from a wholehearted view from the outside, I think what I'm getting from what you're saying, it's like you can see the shadows that are still there, whether that person acknowledges them or not. And that just feels important to include. Um, that stuff doesn't go away just because you put it in shadow and focus on this mode. Um, and yeah, I think that that feels cool. The wholeheartedness. It's then, uh, I guess that that's the mode of really wanting to invite people into that mode and really embody and embrace their wholeheartedness for their like well-being and their benefit, but also for the benefit of everyone around them. Because when you can be in a wholehearted mode and let that like essence come out more fully, more naturally, less guardedly, with less shadow, I think like you were just describing, it's like then your interpersonal connections, your like work relations, your everything becomes more like full and yeah, deeper, cleaner, um, more natural.
Yeah, that opens to that. I love that phrase of like inviting people into a more wholehearted way of being. Yeah, just inviting people into another way of being. And that does feel like what these retreats have been as I kind of look at the effects on everyone. It's like, oh, yeah, we're all just here kind of like inviting each other and being invited and helping, yeah, helping like support that field that is there. Like, ah, yeah, there's a social field that can support everyone moving towards testing out, seeing another mode of being, another mode of wholeheartedness. And thanks in large part to you, you can really hold a lot with that, which has been great. And yeah, there's something, one of the things that didn't click for me until you really mentioned it was, we're putting together some funding for these retreats to, because like we said, they do not bring in a lot of the money. And yeah, that there is kind of this, to some degree, unavoidable transactional element of them, where it has been like, hey, the place costs this much, let's all split our costs. And it is like you pay. We pay in and we all get our slot to rent the place, have our food, blah, blah, blah. And by having some funding available to make sure all of that is paid for separately, it does allow Dana and generosity to be the actual through line of like not just something that we can kind of talk about and have as an element and its way of being is there, but like logistically the thing itself isn't quite there. But when we do have that abundance of like, okay, we've got a little bank account and it can cover this, it does allow for that step to be permeated as well, where people are actually able to just step in and like, okay, it's not transactional. It is, what do I want to give? What feels good to give? What feels like is no longer mine, but it wants to be like given to this thing that's being run. And yeah, that was quite a touching frame on the efforts that I hadn't really put together till you mentioned it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like yeah, and there's a way of um yeah, there's a way of doing Dana where it stays mostly in that transactional. Oh, you come on a retreat and then at the end you put some money in and then that covers, but it's just like a little bit more flexible in terms of how much you pay. But then when we really actually have a bit of money and it doesn't have to be a ton, but like enough to book a place without worrying, can we offer these places to people? Are we going to be able to cover it? If it's just like there's an ease in, yeah, we can find a location and book it and be there and know that there's not going to be like stress around money. And then it becomes like the whole thing almost can become like a gift that is being given and received to the people who are coming. It's like, hey, this place is available and we're offering it, and would you like to step into that? And the person is relating to it, thinking like, yeah, how am I going to receive this gift? What does it mean to me right now to have this time to be on retreat? What can I give in myself by really bringing, and how will that like ripple forward? I really love the way you talk about like, yeah, with this fund, like being able to fund people to do things that then will ripple forward through the rest of their life, through everyone that they meet. It's like doing a training or coming on a retreat or whatever that can then that sort of like the generosity kind of gets a momentum behind it that keeps giving. And it's not just about, oh, here's a bit of extra money for the teacher at the end to say thank you. It's like this ecosystem of yeah, both giving and receiving in this kind of like free flow way that allows just like ripples of like positive impact to spread.
There's something I want to chase there for a second. What is that exactly? There's something amusing to me because yeah, you're referring in part there to like the first two goals. If we can get like enough money at some point, is like first just take care of allowing these retreats to be what they are going to be and to actually be generosity based. And yeah, that doesn't necessarily take a ton. They don't cost a massive amount in the scheme of things. And then second, if like, there's surplus and beyond that, the goal is to let people like, hey, you want that training and you can't afford it, and it would like significantly change how you carry yourself in the world. Cool, let's do that. And this is one that I've talked about before. A couple people have gotten in contact with me before about like funding mystical stuff and what what makes a difference, what doesn't, how can they go? Because you can't really just like Google, like, how do I fund mysticism? Some people came to the local internet mystic and like, how would you do this? And it's interesting me to that one because it is extremely non-transactional in a really big way, where it is, I've met these people who are just you among them, who are just like life changing to hang out with. And it's like, oh, yeah, just spending time with that person switched something. And this is something that I hear from a ton of people who kind of stumble onto the path. It's like, oh, I met this person and they were just like this impossible person. I didn't know you were allowed to be like that. And now I'm figuring out what it is to be human again. So these things make a huge difference. And it amuses to me to the way that in discussions before, I've often had to frame that in very like transactional VC coded like terms where I'm like, oh yeah, like the highest return on investment you're going to get is like making more magical people. Like it doesn't take that much. There's these fundings that are like 3,000 to 7,000 bucks, and they pretty reliably turn out these people who are just life changing for everyone they meet afterwards for the next 30, 60, whatever years. And yeah, there's something that's sticking oddly with me about the way that I want to say the way that I've had to describe that in like transactional money coded terms, but at the very least the way that like I have felt that I've had to. I'm not sure if I actually had to, but yeah, something about the way that it's so non-transactional and is just this flow of like, yeah, we're being really fucking generous to the universe by like helping these people become these people and affect everyone that they meet. And my way of trying to pitch that has been like, oh, the ROI is going to be huge. You pay in 3,000 and you get like a mystical hyper agent for 60 years. It's great. Yeah, it's odd with me.
There's something nice about that though, which is that there's something in the thing we were talking about with the shadows where
Mm-hmm.
people get too much of a limited like uh bandwidth, and then the wholehearted bit is where you sort of feel all these modes anyway. I think like the way of relating to altitudes of development or spiral dynamics as a like thing that you sort of progress up is a very orange way of describing a like
Mm-hmm.
kind of mode of like the modes of being. And we talked about this on retreat. We did a really cool exploration of it, where it's like actually from within each of the modes, you would draw the model in a totally different way. So like just an example, it's like magenta. It's like from the when you're in magenta, it's like capitalism is like an entity or an egregore that's like moving through the spirit of the
Yeah.
universe that people are.
Ma- yeah. Magenta being the very like shamanic, magical,
Mm,
animistic type of view. But yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's like these different kind of entities. Like all the colors are like different entities and gods that are like fighting each other, and people
Mm-hmm.
are like in that tribe of. And you would draw that very differently to a kind of a thing that goes up. And I think there's something about that. Um, for some reason when you're talking, the image I had is like concentric circles where you can, I guess, a failure mode is that you just become the mystical thing and you don't include the fact that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the sort of like orange capitalist rational thing has some deep value in it, where we're actually looking at impact and thinking, yeah, how does this impact people? Like we're kind of rationally, yeah, we're getting like feedback from the retreats and thinking, ah, what are the most important things? Like, what are the most, like, what's impacting people? How is it affecting people? What do people need? How can we be sort of like, yeah, efficient, effective, rational about this and not get like, oh, everything has to be like efficient, effective, rational, like proven this,
Mm-hmm.
but including that as part of this sort of like whole, like the wholehearted thing. I just get an image of like a concentric circle of all these layers that can sort of, you can like fluidly include and move between and not get like stuck in one mode. And I think there's something nice where, yeah, the fact that you can see and track and feel the impact and you care about that and pay attention to that feels, yeah, it feels like really, it feels like there's deep care in that where I think, yeah, I see some other places where it's just like, oh, we just want a load of money to do this mystical thing that we're sure is right because we're like this. Yeah, yeah, it can become a bit unhinged.
When obviously they're wrong, and people should just give us a bunch of money to do the mystical thing because we're right. It's so clear when you're just at like the neon turquoise, just above turquoise. No, there's something that I want to, yeah, that's connecting with something you said earlier. So, yeah, on the one hand, I'm getting the like inclusion of the different layers as they go. And this connects with me something that I did a lot of study of comparative religion in my younger days and stuff. And this is one of the things that's come up pretty often is for a working religion or belief system or organization of any type, you need things to work at like many different levels. You need ways for people at different layers of like, even like different layers of giving a shit, like people who don't really care that much and people whose whole life is about this, and people who are at many of these different stages of development or just stages of their life. You need ways for all of them to make sense of it and participate in it and want to be part of that world. And yeah, that makes sense to me as, yeah, just keeping an eye on all these different layers that are just there in the paradigm. And then early, quite towards the beginning of this conversation, you said something around like, I'm going to get this wrong, but hopefully you remember what you said. um, yeah, you use the term incorrect, that it's incorrect for me to do this in a particular way, which is unusual for you.
Hmm.
A gorgeous bird just landed on this. Oh my God. I'm in southern India at the moment. The birds here are gorgeous. Um, yeah, that there's a certain way of relating to money that because you are trying to do this thing up here is actually just like not good for you to be relating to the money at this level. And yeah, can you bridge, connect, contrast something there between those two things?
Yeah, I think the incorrect piece is more about the contraction,
Mm.
where it's like, yeah, there's a um there are sort of failure modes in people who are trapped in orange or transaction want to want to sort of trap everyone else in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incorrect to be trapped.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that it's entirely the whole premise of it is wrong, but it's like not being willing to have the full richness of what is present. Yeah, this feels like it really hits something. It's like it's like people desperately want to boil down the full complexity and richness of something that is so like sacred is the word that comes up and meaningful and deep into a like um yeah, oh it's a transaction and you have to be able to prove the return on investment or like rationally explain everything or um yeah, like a teal failure mode, which is one a couple above, is like, oh yeah, but everything is just different paradigms. So, everyone can just happily be in their different paradigms, and it's all like, yeah, it just you just let people, um, and just like in each of them, something really sacred gets lost, and some, I think the wholeness is thing I'm pointing to that is the right relationship. Uh, it's really being able to not minimize or sort of gaslight out really, really important sacred parts of experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that connects with what we said on one of the, I think, on like every conversation about the retreats we've had with the not gaslighting out sacred parts of experience. One of the most appreciated things about this, I don't know, this little tradition that's brewing here is it seems to just allow people to see what they see, know what they know, and not keep that gaslighting going. Where, most
Mhm.
of us have spent most of our lives being constantly gaslighted out of seeing what is real and sacred and actually present, and just being able to stop that process in one area, then another area, then another area seems to start adding up to much more of this, yeah, being invited into a whole way of being. Nice. I like that we started with like money and then it just keeps going back to whole way of being. It's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
like existence and the money, but the existence. Nice. I'm all out of, well, first off, the sun is in my face like crazy. But I'm also all out of prompts. Is there anything else that's like particularly active here for you?
I want to see the birds. Um, let me
This
see.
did not help the sun situation at all. I
Maybe.
cannot show you the birds. I can hear a lot of them right now,
Yeah.
but if I walked you about 5 minutes that way, I could show you the peacock. He hangs out in the field over there a lot of the day, but not at the moment.
Um, maybe the sun is the signal that it's time.
That makes sense to me.
Complete.
Um, I will also just say I saw a bird yesterday morning that was a color of blue that, like, if you had asked me and shown me a paint swatch yesterday of like, can this color exist in nature anywhere, would have been just like complete no. I'm like, of course not. That's artificial. You need chemicals for that. It was just this like bright and deep and such a rich blue. And oh, yeah, that's the one thing I'm really loving down here is the birds.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
All right. Well, we will just leave it there.
Nice.
And yeah, thanks for talking. And I
Thanks.
do think there's two or three points here I'm just going to listen to, and we're probably going to have another chat about them at some point because there's like a half dozen things I just didn't pick up on.
Sounds good.